Welcome everybody to another episode of Fins Nation. I'm your host Louis Sung, and today what we're going to be discussing is what exactly is it that I'm looking for in Dolphins training camp, but more specifically, what kind of dark horses am I looking at in Dolphins training camp. So we already discussed what it is that we're going to be looking at during the whole training camp situation. What are the top things we're going to be looking for? We're going to be seeing how does the defense respond to Vic Fangio's coaching? How does Tua Tagovailoa adapt to year two in the same offense with Mike McDaniel? Do we see improvement from Tyreek? Do we see improvement from Austin Jackson? Do we see improvement from Liam Eichenberg? We've discussed all of that. But what I want to go ahead and focus on today is I want to talk about some players that maybe not everybody is actually looking at. I put this out to Twitter and I asked everybody out there what exactly they were looking at as in regards to maybe some more obscure different players. Somebody that does not necessarily come to mind first thing off the bat when you're talking about, oh, I want to see this during training camp. I'm going to give my thoughts on it first, and then I'm going to go ahead into some other people's thoughts, what they responded to me with, and I'm going to go ahead and try to figure out if I can reason out why, if they didn't give a response to that already. But before that, really quick, just want to go ahead and mention that this show is brought to you, as always, by our good friends over at You Brake Wheel Fix. You Brake Wheel Fix is a complete automotive wheel solution. Ever parked too close to the sidewalk curb? You Brake Wheel Fix specializes in the repair of damaged wheels from bends, cracks, and curb rash. Or maybe your wheels are faded or peeling. You don't need to replace them, as You Brake Wheel Fix can refinish them to like new. Offering complete refinish options through powder coating, machining, and polishing, You Brake Wheel Fix is the answer to all of your wheel needs. And if you're just looking to give your ride a new look, You Brake Wheel Fix also offers many car customizing options, such as new custom wheels and tires from your favorite brands, performance upgrades, window tinting, and suspension modifications. Located just south of Aventura, you can reach Mark and his staff at 305-748-0112 or online at youbrakewheelfix.com. They are really active on all social media platforms at You Brake Wheel Fix, so shoot them a DM on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter and get an estimate in just minutes. So don't delay, go to You Brake Wheel Fix and start customizing your ride to show off your Dolphins fandom today. This show is also brought to you by PrizePicks.com. PrizePicks.com is a revolutionary fantasy platform where you can now pick up to 6 different players across professional sports leagues, whether that's the NFL, the NBA, the MLB, or one of each. It's up to you to decide. Just choose whether your chosen player will get more or less than their projected stat. They give you free squares. Today happens to be Taco Tuesday, so you can get discounted props. And also there are Flex Friday specials where you can get your money back if you lose or multiply the amount of money you can normally win. With offers like that, it's hard to justify not signing up if you're any kind of a fantasy sports fan. So use the promo code 5, that's FIVE, and they will match up to $100 on your initial deposit when you sign up. Again, that's promo code 5, spell that out, FIVE. Go to PrizePicks.com, deposit your $100, and let PrizePicks give you $100 of their dollars for you to play with and get started winning today. Okay, everybody, so here's what I wanted to discuss here. So one of the players that I really want to look at during training camp, and I want to see how this affects him and what eventually is going to be his future with the Miami Dolphins or some other team. My guy that I'm looking at is Jerome Baker. Now, the reason I'm looking at Jerome Baker, up until this point, Baker has essentially been the understood best linebacker on the team. There has been nobody else who comes even remotely close when it comes to just plain old middle of the field, sideline to sideline linebackers. But now that is no longer the consensus. Now the Miami Dolphins have brought in David Long Jr., who, for what we can tell, seems to be over the whole little hamstring situation that he briefly had earlier in the offseason, which is a good thing, because now we get to see him in pads and actually do what he was supposed to do. A lot of Tennessee Titans fans have talked about how incredible David Long Jr. is when he's healthy, and that's the key term there, when he is healthy. Supposedly he's healthy again, looks like he's looking forward to getting on to training camp, so we will see what happens with that. But I want to see what's going to happen with Jerome Baker now, because now he's not going to be the number one linebacker on the roster by consensus. Now he's got competition. Now he's got somebody who's going to be possibly taking snaps away from him. And not only that, I want to know exactly what the plan is for Vic Fangio with Andrew Van Ginkel, because we've already heard about how he's going to be transitioning to become more of an inside linebacker, something he hasn't done since college. Up until this point, he's basically been a pass rusher. So now He's going to be getting looks inside. I want to see how that is going to actually affect Jerome Baker. What is he going to be doing in this defense now? Is he just going to be a complementary piece to David Long Jr.? Maybe they have two regular linebackers on the field, and then they're going to have their cornerbacks spread out throughout the rest of the secondary, or are they going to have less guys on the defensive line, or are they going to have less guys in the secondary? I want to see what happens with Jerome Baker now that David Long Jr. is here, and with Andrew Van Ginkel working in the middle, and Duke Riley is also still here. Is he going to be depth? Is he going to be competing with Van Ginkel for a roster spot? I want to see how this all goes down. So that's my thoughts on the whole situation. Now I'm going to go ahead and break down some of these other names that Miami Dolphins fans responded to me with, about who they want to look at, who maybe are not necessarily household names as of yet. So one of the guys that I've followed for a very long time, we follow each other, columnist Fins.com at FinsChris over there on Twitter. One of the players that he wanted to look at is Channing Tindall. Now, in a previous show, I had made the suggestion that I do not believe that Channing Tindall is actually going to end up making the roster. And the reason that I say that is basically because of the same reason we're having this linebacker discussion with Jerome Baker right now. Channing Tindall, I don't think he's going to make the roster. He might get on the practice squad at best at this point. But what I'm noticing from Channing Tindall is basically I don't think he knows how to play football in the NFL yet. I just don't. I think there's something in his head. He has to learn the game. He has to actually get used to what the assignments actually are. And now he has to start from scratch all over again. Because when he got here, it was Josh Boyer and his defensive staff that was running the show. Now we have a completely different guy in Vic Fangio with a completely different scheme compared to what it was that Josh Boyer was asking of him. So now Channing Tindall has to start completely over, and that's just going to make his learning just completely start. It's like starting from scratch. You can't just learn a new program and automatically get it right off the bat. You have to start somewhere. So I do not believe that Channing Tindall is going to get that year 1 to 2 leap that FinsChris is talking about here. In fact, I think it's he is in danger. I'm already starting to see shades of this, and I hope that I'm wrong, but I'm starting to already see shades of Noah Igbenogany in the sense that Channing Tindall has all the athleticism in the world. He has great speed. He has an amazing athletic ability, but he doesn't know how to play the game. His instincts are not attuned to what it is that the defense needs, and that I am very concerned about. I hope that Channing Tindall does not turn into another Noah Igbenogany, but you know what? Even if he does, it's not going to hurt as much because instead of being a first-round pick like Igbenogany, Channing Tindall was a third-round draft pick. That was all. It was already a flyer from the very start. So if he ends up not working out, well, the Miami Dolphins can always take another shot at another time. Now, one of the other things that my good friend Jason Sarney, he gave his thoughts on who he wants to look at, and he's talked about undrafted free agent Alama Ulave, and I hope I said that right. But what is special about him is that he's purely a center. He's a center. He is not a guard. He's not a tackle. He is a center. Now, why is that important right now? Because as of right now, the Miami Dolphins are in a little bit of a pickle with last year's starting center, Connor Williams. Connor Williams was transitioned from guard to center, and we were all questioning why would they do that. Well, as it turned out, they were able to spot a really good center when they saw it. And Connor Williams was, I believe anyway, one of the top 5 centers in the NFL last season. Not that he was going to get any recognition for that, because why would you do that? Because he's a Miami Dolphin, and we all know the national media doesn't particularly care for Miami Dolphins unless your name is Dan Orlovsky or Emmanuel Acho. Aside from that, Connor Williams he sat out mandatory minicamp. He decided he wasn't going to come. He's making it a point to say that he wants a long-term contract, which is fine. I get it. You want a long-term contract. You want to be able to have some place to set down your roots for the next few years. I totally understand that. And as far as I am concerned, the Miami Dolphins would be stupid to let him even remotely get a look at walking away. The Dolphins have struggled for so long to find good offensive linemen. So letting him walk now would basically be offensive line suicide. Chris Grier does not have a good track record with offensive linemen. He just doesn't. So he finally found one good one. He found another good one, great one actually, in Teron Armstead. So Connor Williams needs to stay on the team. I don't care how you do it, but make it happen. Somehow. There's got to be a way. And I'm not saying that you have to pay him make him the highest paid center in the NFL. I'm sure he would love that, but let's try to at least be semi-reasonable about the whole discussion. But with that said, why does this matter? As of right now, the Miami Dolphins are testing Liam Eichenberg as center. They even gave him the coveted orange jersey in mandatory minicamp to say that he did the best out of everybody else, and he was playing center when he did it. My co-host Ron Caniff on Pulse of Fins Nation thinks that the orange jersey at that point was more about sending a message to Connor Williams than it was about Liam Eichenberg actually doing a good job at center. I do not believe, me personally, that they would just take that orange jersey and weaponize it against someone else. They're not going to say, here, Liam, you get to wear this today because we really want to tell Connor Williams that he needs to get his tail in here. I don't think that's what that was. I think that he probably did a good job that day, and if that's the case, fantastic. That would be awesome if we could just find this miraculous transformation of Liam Eichenberg into a center. That would be awesome. Great. I don't think that's going to be what happens, but we'll see. So, Alama Ulave, if it turns out that he can play center well, then I honestly believe that the Miami Dolphins, maybe what they could do, instead of making Connor Williams play center, maybe you can move him back to left guard, and then we can take care of that situation. Because remember, he was transitioned from a guard, which he was good at. It's not like they transitioned him from guard to center, and he went from a bad offensive lineman to a good offensive lineman. Connor Williams was already good from the start. He just had a lot of holding penalties that they had to clean up. So if you move him back to guard, it's not like Connor Williams is going to suddenly become a bad player. He was already good to begin with. So in my opinion, the best thing that could happen for the Dolphins, honestly, is either Liam Eichenberg or Alama Ulave or whoever you want to throw out there ends up becoming a good center, and then you can move Connor Williams back to left guard, and that whole left side of the line, you can let whoever you want to be the starting running back run to the left side, and they'll be able to get at least 4 yards. Teron Armstead, Connor Williams, and then a good center, because again, I'm not moving Connor Williams unless I found somebody who can replace him very easily at that center position. Because for whatever reason, Liam Eichenberg can't get left guard. He just can't. And I'm not a big fan of Robert Jones. I think that there's some potential there, but I don't want to go out and say, yeah, I want him to be my starting left guard. I'm good with that. I'm not good with that. I am not content with that whatsoever. So if Connor Williams plays left guard and Alama Ulave turns out to be a fantastic center, I will be the happiest guy on the face of the planet. I can promise you that. Now, let's go ahead and go through some other guys here. John Green said that he wants to see Jake Bailey punt. Okay, I mean, that's cool and all. Listen, man, maybe you have a connection with Jake Bailey. There are a lot of guys on Twitter who have connections to certain players. I know that Chris Saccone, who I don't know if I've said his name correctly either, but he's been a one-man crusade trying to get Reuben Foster a workout with the Miami Dolphins and a training camp invite. And granted, I want Reuben Foster to get that invite. I think that he would be good depth for the Dolphins. But I don't know if he's actually going to get it. We will see what happens. But back to the Jake Bailey thing. I've already said in previous shows that as far as I am concerned, Jake Bailey's time on this team, I think his time is already up. I personally feel like that Michael Turk is going to ultimately beat out Bailey. If he doesn't, I will be very shocked. Jake Bailey was a former Pro Bowl punter, and no other team wanted to sign him back. Why did the Dolphins have to be the one to do it? Because it didn't take long for Thomas Morstead to find a new home, and he's in his late 30s. So why does Jake Bailey, who is younger than him, have to wait around for the Dolphins to go ahead and bring him back in? So that's my concern. Is Jake Bailey trying to revitalize his career? Are we in a situation where a veteran punter got hurt like a Michael Palardy and he was trying to revitalize his career? Palardy, by the way, oh my God, it was so bad. It was so bad. Like Michael Palardy, honestly, in some ways, he was better as a punter, but with the whole holding situation and like the chemistry with Jason Sanders and field goals, I really feel like that there was something there that just wasn't clicking. Like Jason Sanders missed so many field goals with Michael Palardy holding that football, something that never happened with Matt Hawk. With Matt Hawk holding the football, and believe me, I did an interview with Brent Grablachoff, who used to be Jason Sanders' kicking coach, and you can check that out on the 5 Reasons Sports Network website. I did that whole interview, and he talked about how important it is for holders when it comes to field goal kicking and the like. Michael Palardy just wasn't getting it, man. And Thomas Morstead, as a veteran, Jason Sanders seemed to benefit a little bit more from him. He was starting to get back in his groove. So we will see what happens with Jake Bailey or Michael Turk. But I personally feel like Jake Bailey, that competition is going to be interesting. But I think that ultimately it's going to be Michael Turk who ends up winning that job. Let's go ahead and talk about another guy. Here we have Malik Reed. So he's the guy that it looks like he's going to be replacing Melvin Ingram on the roster. And I thought that Melvin Ingram coming back to Miami was basically a sure thing. He really liked Miami. I know a guy who I've been talking to who said that Melvin Ingram was liking Miami. He wanted to come back to Miami, but as far as I can tell, the Miami Dolphins haven't even sent out an offer to Melvin Ingram. And from what I can tell, I'm wondering if the NFL thinks that Melvin Ingram's career has run its course, because I have not heard any reports saying that Melvin Ingram has received any interest from anybody. And you know what? If it turns out that he is going to be a free agent for some time, even after training camp, I'll put it this way. At the beginning of the season when he was fresh, Melvin Ingram was one of the best players on the defense for the Dolphins last season. Melvin Ingram was making players get hit. He was forcing turnovers. He was doing some awesome stuff for the Dolphins. But as the season wore on, Melvin Ingram started to get slower. He was starting to look less explosive. Yeah, he's on the older side now. You can't always be some Cameron Wake superstar freak athlete who apparently can just do whatever he wants whenever he wants. And even then, even as fast off the snap as Cameron Wake looked at the tail end of his career, he wasn't getting as many sacks as he used to. He just wasn't. And that hurts me on a personal level because I absolutely love Cameron Wake. And as far as I'm concerned, Cameron Wake belongs on the Dolphins' Ring of Honor. I truly believe that. Cameron Wake is the best Dolphins pass rusher ever since Jason Taylor. And Jalen Phillips, as much as I love the kid and I think he's going to do some great things here, he's got a ways to go before he catches Cameron Wake in my book. So here we have now Malik Reed, who's taking over for Melvin Ingram. Maybe Melvin Ingram can come back and join the Dolphins near the tail end of the season if maybe somebody gets hurt or if we just need that last bit of oomph to be able to get into the postseason. I would love to have a fresh Melvin Ingram during midseason or in the postseason. That would be super. But here we have Malik Reed, who had his best year in his second year with Vic Fangio and the Denver Broncos. Vic Fangio was the head coach in 2020. He was the head coach in 2019 too when he was a rookie. I granted that. But in 2020, Malik Reed had 1 pass deflection, 1 forced fumble. He had 8 sacks. 53 tackles. Yeah, okay. 8 tackles for a loss. Cool. That's the sacks. 8 sacks. And then the season after that, he had 5 sacks. As soon as he got to Pittsburgh, his production drastically fell off. He only had 1 sack, only 25 tackles. He was not somebody who was being a focal point of that defense anymore. And by the way, I should also mention this, which is actually very interesting when you think about it. Malik Reed's best years was in Denver with the Broncos. And guess who else was with the Denver Broncos in those seasons? It was actually Bradley Chubb, who is now his teammate, again, in Miami. So, in 2020, that same year that Malik Reed was having a fantastic season, Bradley Chubb played in 14 games. He had 7.5 sacks, 42 tackles, 9 tackles for a loss. He was awesome. He made it to the Pro Bowl that year. Awesome. Fantastic. But Malik Reed was right there next to him, and they were working in tandem. So now you add Malik Reed to Vic Fangio's defense for a second time, and you add Jalen Phillips to that discussion. I really want to see what's going to happen here with Malik Reed too, because if Malik Reed can turn into somebody who was that same guy who he was in Denver, then it really doesn't matter who rotates in and out on that defensive line. Quarterbacks are going to be sweating. Again, all of this is on paper. We have to see it happen, but I'm really excited to see what's going to happen in training camp this year. So that's going to be it for this show. Thank you all so much for listening. There are so many players who deserve to be watched in training camp this year, and I cannot wait to see who ends up standing out, who is going to be the surprise X factor. We didn't even mention guys like Robbie Chosen. Is he going to be the third wide receiver? Because it seems like there was actually a metric that came out that most of the passes that were thrown his way in the previous few seasons, very few of them were actually catchable passes. So is it really his fault for having a fall off in his production, or is it really just a simple matter of the people throwing to him were just not good? So looking at you, Kyler Murray. So we will see what happens with that. It's going to be competing with Braxton Berrios. Going to be competing with Cedric Wilson Jr. Who's going to end up being the guy? And if he doesn't end up being number 3, that means he's number 4. And if he's number 4 wide receiver, you have Robbie Chosen, the man formerly known as Robbie Anderson. He's going to be your number 4 wide receiver. You got a loaded wide receiver core, man. I can't wait to see what's going to happen with that. I wish that I would have more time to be able to go to training camp myself and check things out. We will see what happens with that, but I will keep you guys posted as far as what's going on there. So if you haven't already done so, make sure you go check out You Brake Wheel Fix. If you need to get your wheels fixed, or if you need to give your ride a new look, just reach out to them at 305-748-0112 or online at youbrakewheelfix.com. And make sure you go to prizepicks.com, use the promo code 5, that's FIVE, and they will match up to $100 on your initial deposit when you sign up. If you are any kind of a fantasy sports fan, then you should absolutely check out prizepicks.com. They have all sorts of ways to make sure that you get your money's worth. So go ahead and head over there. We will see you all tomorrow for another episode of Fins Nation.